What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another solo leveling Arise video. Alright guys, we are going to be talking about another weapon. We did a quick guide for you guys on the Westwind and how to use it correctly. Now we're going to be doing an SSR weapon, and perhaps the most important weapon in the game when it comes down to number one, support, and sometimes also damage. Then we're going to be talking about probably the coolest looking weapon in the game as well too, and that is none other than the demonic plum flower sword. I'm going to teach you guys all about it, how to use it as an expert, and why it is considered the best support weapon in the game by far in regards to any weapon you use. It is what I call a universal weapon. There is a handful of them. I've mentioned them in the actual combo video, which weapons work best. I call these universal weapons because they can be paired with anything and they will dominate and amplify your abilities to do more damage. Now let's talk a little bit about the demonic plum sword and everything it has to offer you. So first off, 3 different skills just like any other sword. It is an SSR, of course, and looks incredibly badass with an awesome dark aura. It is a dark weapon. So a couple things to note. Basic attacks: stage 1 99.71%, stage 2 106%, stage 3 112%, all dark elements. The main thing to note about the basic attacks, it is an AoE damage dealing attack. So you can check it out here. You guys can see here, anything with this vicinity is going to get hit. It is powerful, it has incredible range, and it does hit multiple enemies at once, so keep that in mind. Now the second skill here, which is the core attack, is a very powerful wind-up attack that does 555% with dark damage. Now remember, core attacks build over time, so as you do basic attacks or skills, this will increase, and then this right here will become a core attack in which you'll see that skill. And then ultimately you can do these the plum flower swift flight, which is the ultimate skill. Damage is 1613. Incredible power. 25 seconds cooldown with 217% MP consumption with dark elemental damage. So let's talk a little bit about the sword and why it's considered to be one of the best, if not the best, support weapon in the game. So plum flight, swift flight, that is the skill we just saw. That is the ultimate skill. Whenever it is used, the user applies the plum flower effect. After successfully performing a dash followed by plum flower swift flight, they apply the full bloom effect. I'm going to show you guys in game how to do this properly and how to apply it and where it is applied. So every time you do the effect, increases your critical hit damage by 12%, stacking up to 3 times. The duration is infinite. That's what makes it incredibly powerful. Duration never leaves, and your crit damage skyrockets, right? So you can see that. Now with the full bloom effect, this increases the usage speed of full swift flight by 20%. The user's attack increases by 4%, and the user's critical hit rate increases by 4% as well, giving you 8 seconds of increased damage overall. Now this is an important one because plum flower will happen, but this is what you need to activate to get the extra bonus and the speed as well too from the skill. Now let's talk a little bit about the Ascensions and why they're very important. So Ascension 1 is probably one of the most important ones. When the user sheathes the sword after doing the skill, applies the amplification draw. And what amplification draw does, increases the chance of your user landing a critical hit on the next attack by 32%, increasing the skill damage also by 32%, and this lasts for 3 seconds. So you do need to use this as soon as you possibly can. Whenever you see amplifying draw, it will increase your crit chance. Now remember, crit is capped at 50% with stats, but this will raise it to 82%, also increasing your skill damage by 32%, causing massive damage. Now remember, A2 is always dark damage. The elemental here has to be also the weakness of the enemy. So if the enemy is not weak to dark, this will not apply. So this only applies to anyone that has an elemental weakness to that affinity. The way to see this is when you see someone who's not weak to it, you're going to see white damage. This will never apply. When you see someone who's weak to it, you see purple damage. That's when this will take into effect. A lot of people don't understand that, and I have to keep explaining it, so I just wanted to make sure we understand that again, okay? When the user uses dash, amplifying draw lasts for 5 seconds, and an additional increase to critical hit damage by 32%. That's a whopping, guys. If you look at this, that's right here. You can stack it up 12 times 3, and then an additional 32% on top of that with A3, making this the most viable version of this sword. So if as a free-to-play player, if you get into A3, you're perfect. And then of course A4 is everything else. It reduces the cooldown by 20%, and then A5 as the plum flower effect increases users dark damage by 5%, applies 2 instances of plum flower when entering the stage, stacking up to 5 times instead of 3. So essentially what happens, guys, is this critical hit damage will increase times 5, giving you a hell of a lot more damage. Now this applies to every weapon that you use this with. So you don't have to have the plum sword for that to apply. So for example, having the West Wind with this sword is going to make it the most powerful West Wind you possibly have, because all of those buffs will stay on you infinitely, especially with the Plum Flower. And this now becomes a massive weapon of destruction, more than it already is, right? So keep that in mind. Now, how do you use this sword? So let me get into that next, and I'll show you guys how to properly use the sword with another weapon, either as a DPS sword or as a weapon that will help you support every other possible weapon you have equipped with it. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, so a couple things to note about the sword. You see those flower petals around you? You can see the buff also all the way down there. It's the middle buff that has a 2 with it. That's 2 plum swords or plum flowers applied to you instantly because you have an A5. Okay, so whenever you are using the sword at A5, you're going to notice that. Now you can see here, the attack speed is fast, and it has great range, also does again some AoE, right? Now you can see on Igris here, I'm going to show you guys how to do the plum effect, okay, the full bloom effect. So when you dodge, you have a few seconds to do amplifying draw. So that was me right there, just doing a regular attack, okay? So that's, you can see the little icon around you that applies. Now that sheath is going to go away on the icon there, okay? So look right there. So whenever you dash, amplifying draw will happen. You can see the sheath as the second last buff on there, and it'll continue applying right there, amplifying draw, right? So whenever you dash, guys, whenever you sheath it, it'll apply, okay? So just keep that in mind. Now let's show you guys how to do a proper full bloom, okay? So dash and then attack, okay, with your skill. That's what you're gonna do. So let's watch this and I'll show you guys how this works. So right here, dash. Now you guys can see here, it says amplifying draw and full bloom, and you'll see the buff now in the bottom actually increased by 1. You see that 2 became a 3 now, right? So that will now stay there like that permanently, and that will increase your crit damage going forward. Now I'm doing this very lightly on Igris, taking it easy on our boy, just because he gets his butt kicked in usually 10 seconds. But again, I'll do it to 4 now. Look at that, dash and then attack. So on mobile, where a lot of you guys have a problem doing this, you just need to do 1 quick dash. You have about 2 seconds, 1.5 seconds to press the skill button in order for that to work. Now all my crit damage is now applying. Now see that purple damage I was referring to? That A2 only applies here because Igris is in fact weak to purple or dark damage. In this case, dark damage is applying, and that extra 10% from A2 is also applying as well too. Now remember, at A5 we can do this up to 5 times, right? So we're gonna go ahead and let him come at us here. Okay, and then we're gonna do another full bloom right there. See? And look at that range. I can be far away, and you can see how that still applies. Now I got 5 times of that. Now if I were to put my scythe in play, you're going to see a lot more damage come through from the scythe because of this weapon, right? So keep that in mind. Your other weapon will also apply. Now just like the scythe would apply, or just like the plum applies, the scythe will also apply. If I get down to 70% HP, which I'll do right now for you guys, right? Unfortunately, I didn't get low enough. You would see the scythe effect kick in as well too, showing you that both the plum and the scythe can work together. Now, the beauty of the scythe and the plum, of course, is the fact that at 70%, the scythe gives you 25% more crit rate, allowing you to do a lot more crit damage with the sword. So let me show you guys real quick how this would look in full combat if I were to actually try. Okay, so we're going to go back to Igris here again. Now keep in mind I have a 3-star, so this is going to be a lot faster than you normally see, but I'll at least show you guys how you should tackle this when you jump in. So the first thing you always want to do with the plum sword is have amplifying draw available, and you always want a full bloom. Full bloom is going to be your best friend. So first thing we're going to do is let Igris attack, dodge, go into a full bloom effect right here. You guys can see all my damage coming through. Okay, and then now you bring in the scythe and you just rock it right there. Look, you would have just taken one more hit, it would have been done, but it is what it is. We missed the last scythe attack. It's a little slower, but that's how you amplifying draw was there. The full bloom effect was at 3. My crit rate was way higher, and the scythe now is doing a lot more damage. Okay, now this also applies very well to the dragon fight. So a lot of people use these 2 weapons with the dragon as well too, especially on dark days and even on basic days where there is no element. Let me show you guys real quick what I'm talking about. Let's go here. You guys can see here the element is water. So normally I would do a water setup for you, but here I'm going to just show you guys what I'm referring to, at least so you guys can see the setup for both and how they work on the dragon fight. These 2 weapons work extremely well together, and you can also substitute the scythe with the dagger, guys, as well too if you need to. Okay, so here, actually, you know what, I won't even put the scythe in. I'll put in let's put the grimoire in. I'll show you guys both how these 2 work together. Okay, so let's go in with full bloom, amplifying draw, increase our crit chance, and then use the grimoire to also maximize the amount of damage it does with the crit that it offers, right? So watch this. We're coming in. Again, remember, you want to dash. That dash equals a dodge. That is what that essentially is. Okay, it's the same button at the end of the day. Okay, watch this. Okay, so you get full bloom, amplifying draw, perfect. Now we got full bloom at 3. We're gonna go ahead now and take advantage of that full bloom and do more damage with our crits. You see how the blue there affected the dragon, but not the purple this time? This is what I'm referring to. So when you do full bloom again and amplifying draw, look at that, there's no purple there, so that extra damage from the element at A2 does not apply. So keep that in mind. But all of your extra crit damage is in fact applying from your actual skill, full bloom and amplifying draw. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now look, we're at 4, right? I can do one more here and push it to 5 and then maximize the amount of DPS this sword can do. There we go. Now everything else that I also use skill wise will now also be amplified. That includes the grimoire and the amount of damage it does from a crit perspective. Okay, so very, very important, guys, to make sure if you're gonna get the plum sword, you're gonna focus on it, you do try to push to a minimum A3. If you can get A5, you're golden. You're gonna be doing so much freaking damage with all your other weapons. If you watch anyone's major runs, like we're talking about like quick runs and story modes and stuff, you'll see that most people will use Westwind and Plum Sword together, because Plum Sword is just such a powerful skill in this game in terms of crit damage and what it offers for crit, that there's really no substitute for it as a weapon. So that's what makes it one of the, if not the premier support weapons in the game, as well as DPS weapons in the game. All right, guys, this is Payne. I hope this kind of taught you a little. Remember, dash 1 to 2 seconds remaining. You do the skill, which will allow you to do full bloom, which gives you amplifying draw, and then allows you to then maximize your DPS with crit and crit damage. Pairing this with anything that has crit rate is incredibly powerful, because the more crit rate you have, obviously the more times you will do crit damage on it as well. So there you guys go. That's how it works. This is Payne. Thank you for watching. Remember, master the sword. It'll take you really, really far in this game, and it can be paired universally with every other weapon to amplify it. All right, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.